All right, welcome into episode 5 of Student Union Study Hall. I'm Luke Myers. Austin Brown, we have a new person on here today. Liam Smith can't make it. It's Ben's shoemate. Welcome on, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be your sixth man anytime. Just hope Liam's having fun wherever he's at and not too worried about me stealing his job.
Oh, I don't know about that, but got some great topics, so let's get started with it. We'll get right into it with Josh Jackson getting suspended for the first game of the Big 12 tournament. Kind of irrelevant, but Austin, what do you think about this?
This is easily the most Bill Self move of all time. He clearly doesn't care about the Big 12 tournament. He never really has. And so this event happened, I think, on February 2nd. So he's had 5 weeks to deal with it. And apparently he just found out on Monday that, granted, the incident wasn't that bad. He backed into someone on campus and then didn't leave a note. And so it's not like he hurt anybody. But still not a great thing to do. He basically self-decided we're going to suspend him for the least meaningful game of our season because they're getting the winner of Oklahoma TCU, which right now looks like it's going to be TCU. So pretty much a caveat. If they win, good for them. If they lose, well, we didn't have one of our best players, so it doesn't matter. So this is exactly what I would expect Bill Self to do. One thing to be interesting, though, they only have 6 rotation players now, and I don't count Mitch Lightfoot in that because he's atrocious. And so the only guy they're going to really have coming off the bench is with Gerald Vick. So it will be interesting to see if they can get in foul trouble or something, what'll happen there. But I don't know. I don't think it's a huge deal.
Ben?
Yeah, sort of along the same lines. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, I don't necessarily believe that Self didn't know until now. I find that really hard to believe. But yet at the same time, he had 3 also meaningless games at the end of the regular season he could have sat him out for. I mean, why not set him against Texas? Like, the whole thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like you said, the incident itself wasn't that bad. I really don't think it's a huge deal, stupid bonehead mistake backing into somebody and not leaving a note, whatever. Like you said, it won't matter. Kansas will be fine. Seen some people calling out Bill Self. I just don't think it's a huge deal. I just find it kind of confusing and don't necessarily believe that he just found out about this last week.
Yeah, I mean, the way I'm looking at it, who really cares? Kansas, even without Josh Jackson, he's a great player, but they'd still be towards the top in the Big 12. They're going to be a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, so they pretty much guaranteed a cupcake in the first round, and all major programs are crooked in my book. I mean, they're all doing recruiting violations or having women come in to impress their recruits, but I don't really care about this. It's irrelevant. They're going to win they might win the Big 12 tournament. They could easily run the table, but yeah. So we'll move on to our next topic here. It's our favorite moment from the last week of conference tournament play. Ben, why don't you start this one?
Well, I think Milwaukee would have been incredible. What was it, 26 losses they had or something absurd?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't end up there. Northern Kentucky's pretty awesome. First year they're eligible. They're going to go to the dance. But for me, I just want to get back to Gonzaga. I mean, I know y'all talked about this last week, but so impressed by them. I think the fact that people are using one little BYU loss to sort of claim that they're overrated is ridiculous. I mean, if you watch that game last night, it's like they were in a completely different league against St. Mary's, who I also think is a dangerous team. But, I think St. Mary's got the lead to 10 last night in the second half, but anyone watching that game pretty much knew there was no way they could have played, a full game with Gonzaga. So we know they'll be a 1 seed now. They should be a 1 seed. They're deserving, and I think they're going to be pretty scary. I think they're just fun to watch, and I'm excited to watch them shut up some haters in the tournament because I think this could be the year we see them in the Final Four.
Austin?
Yeah, for one, I do think Gonzaga is really good. Who I don't think is good is St. Mary's. I've watched them play a couple times this year. First of all, their entire team, save one player, is white, which is not usually a formula that gets it done in the NCAA tournament. They don't have anybody really all their game just looks like rec league ball. It's just throwing it around, trying to get an open shot, or giving it to Jock Landale, who is really good. But other than that, it's just a bunch of small white guys who can run around and shoot. So I don't. Maybe it's just the games I've watched. I don't see what it is about St. Mary's. I think it's just kind of been the rest of the league's not very good. But my favorite moment was last night, Summit League final. Mike Dahm for South Dakota State dropped 37 points, 12 rebounds. They've now been to the tournament 4 out of the last 6 years, but they're playing Omaha, who would have also been a cool story because it was their first or second year of NCAA eligibility, and that would have been cool. But one of my favorite March Madness moments, especially when it's an underdog team like South Dakota State, just watching one player completely put the team on his back and carry him. And that's what Mike Dahm did last night. He was hitting everything, just give him the ball. He had a black eye, which just made it a lot cooler. I don't know how he got that. He had it before the game. But Mike Dahm carrying the Jackrabbits back to the NCAA tournament, best thing I saw all week. Luke, what about you?
You bring up Omaha. I was really pulling for them to win that game because Iowa lost to them earlier this year, and it would improve their resume a little bit. But I'm going to go with 2 teams that haven't made the tournament ever, and it looks like they're going to Northern Kentucky and Northwestern. I'm pretty sure by now we've all seen the insane play how Northwestern won last week against Michigan. The full court pass on the layup, it was just beautiful. And Northern Kentucky, I believe this is their first year of eligibility as well, but they've been in D1 team for 5 years now, I think it was. And they've never had a winning record until this season, and now they sit at 24-10 in conference champs. I think that's what makes March so great. It just gives teams that don't get there a lot a chance to make some noise.
Also, Northern Kentucky has the best mascot in all of college basketball, the Norse, the Viking-looking thing that looks like something out of Thor. I'm all in on that guy.
So badass.
Love the Viking. But next up, we got our favorite topic. Is Duke back? It's been well known that I disagreed. They're not back, and Austin agrees. Ben, what do you think?
I think Duke's going to be fine. I know we're going to get to some conference tourney picks later, but I think they could win the ACC. I know things got a little dicey today against Clemson. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well. I think they've had their bumps in the road, but at the end of the day, they've got Coach K. I think Luke Kennard can be the guy that can take them the distance. I think if Grayson Allen knows his place, which is not as the guy, or maybe even the second guy, I think, like I said, they're going to be fine. I think they got Florida State next. No, they got Louisville next.
Yep,
that's
Louisville.
Right. I think they're going to be fine. I know y'all do this every week, but I've never really got completely off Duke because they've got Coach K. They've got Kennard, who I'm big on, and I think if Grayson Allen knows his place, they'll be fine.
Bingo, you nailed it. I like this guy. We need to kick Liam off and keep him. Just kidding, Liam. Have fun. But anyways, I agree. I think that the narrative coming into this year was Duke is going to be as good as Grayson Allen can carry them, essentially. And I've never really agreed with that narrative. The fact that he was preseason player of the year was a joke. He's always been a role player in my eyes. I think Luke Kennard's their best player. He's been on fire. Another guy that kind of gets overshadowed just by all the drama this year, Jason Tatum is unbelievable. One of the best big men in the country. One of the few guys that you can just give him the ball down in the low block. He can shake someone off, put up a shot, get up and under, get fouled, do something. And so the fact that they have good shooters and a good big man, and the fact that they have the number 1 recruit in the country last year, Harry Giles, that comes off the bench, Duke is fine. They do have Louisville, which is a tough matchup in the next round. We'll talk in a minute about the ACC tournament, but Duke is back. They've always been back ever since Coach K recovered from his fake back injury. But Luke, are you still not in on it?
Nah, I'm still not in on them. I mean, you look at their season as a whole. They have losses to Virginia Tech, NC State, Syracuse, and they almost lost to Clemson twice. I mean, those are they're not bad losses, but they're not Duke caliber losses. Usually Duke loses to North Carolina or teams atop the ACC, not teams clinging to the bubble like that. And another problem with them is they lack consistency, I think, on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they only had 6 people score in their today against Clemson. Grayson Allen didn't even get a bucket to fall for him, and only 3 points came off the bench. So I don't think they're back. Without Coach K, I think this is probably an 18 to 17 win team. Duke will lose in the first round of the tournament this year, so that's all right.
Yeah, see, your key words there were without Coach K, but guess what? They have Coach K, as they have for the last 37 years. That's why Duke basketball is what it is, and that's why Duke does well every year, is because they have Coach K.
But even with Coach K, they find themselves out early in the tournament in the first weekend, like probably half the years.
They won the tournament 2 years ago.
2 years ago, sure. I don't know. I'm just not on board with them yet.
I think you're just looking for reasons, Luke. You're going to come around.
I think the mind games, the Coach K mind games, kicking him out of the locker room, like, forbidding him to wear their Duke basketball stuff. I don't know. I think something about him. I think he knows what he's doing, whether or not it's a fake back injury or not. I think Coach K's got a master plan, and I think he's going to take this team further than Luke thinks.
I agree.
You bring up the taking away the clothes and stuff like that. I listened to Jay Williams the other day on Pardon My Take, and that was a great interview. But he said, Coach K always used to do that kind of shit, and nobody ever talked about it then, but whatever.
That's why he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
It's mind games.
So now we're going to move on to who we think our Power 5 winners are, or Power 5 plus the Big East will win the conference tournament. Which team? Do you just want to go around and do conference by conference?
Sure.
All right. Ben, why don't you take it away? We'll start with the ACC. How about that?
So we just talked about it. I think it's going to be Duke. Like I said, Kennard, I think with Grayson Allen as a role player and Coach K pulling the strings, I think they're going to make a run at this.
Austin?
Just looking at the bracket in the ACC, the three best teams in the conference are all on one side, and I think that's Duke, North Carolina, and Louisville. And so Duke and Louisville have to play each other next round, and then the winner of that probably has to play North Carolina. So if you go down to the bottom half, I think Florida State's a week 2 seed. It gets much easier. I got Notre Dame solely because the other side's so hard. I think that they're the one team that I feel the most confident is going to be in the championship, and once they get there, anything can happen.
I like that pick. But I was fighting with Louisville or North Carolina, and I ultimately chose North Carolina. I just like them a lot in postseason play. Pretty much every year they manage to get to the second weekend at least. And I like your Notre Dame pick a lot because they do usually make runs in the ACC tournament, but I just think North Carolina's got some great big man down low, and they'll be able to pull it out. So next conference we will do is Big 12, Austin's conference. Austin, take it away.
This is another case where I think that a lot of it has to do with matchups and just the side of the bracket. Surprise, surprise, I'm going to take Baylor here. They open with Kansas State, who's a team that they're clearly better than. I know they lost to him earlier this year, but that was the worst 30 minutes of basketball I've ever seen. And then they still only lost that game by 2. I think they get past K-State. West Virginia could lose in the second round. They have, especially if it ends up being Tech. They play Texas, and Texas Tech play later tonight. But if it ends up being Texas Tech, then them and West Virginia have gone to overtime twice this year, with Tech winning one of them. Kansas, like I said, Bill Self doesn't care about it, and so I could see something happening to them. Iowa State and Oklahoma State are dangerous teams. I could see someone from that half. I just don't know who I feel confident about. So picking another 3 seed here. Give me Baylor. Give me Scott Drew. What could go wrong? Scott Drew always performs well in March.
I've got Kansas. I think, like I said, they're going to be fine. No distraction with Jackson. They've shown themselves to be the most talented, consistent team in the conference. I do think they're playing for a 1 seed, so Self will have them motivated. I'm going Kansas.
This pains me to say, because I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan, but I think the Iowa State Cyclones are going to make a run in the tournament. They're arguably the hottest team right now in the Big 12, aside from Kansas probably, but they have some good guys out there, especially Monte Morris, their point guard. Just an outstanding senior they have transferred in there, and a guy named Naz Long. He's just a pure sniper, one of the best shooters in the country, I think. But I'll take Iowa State in that one. Next, we will move to the Big Ten. Ben, kick it off.
So the Big Ten, I think, is going to be complete anarchy. I don't think it's a particularly good conference. I'm sure, Luke, you know that better than anybody. I think it's going to be full of upsets, and I'm going to go with Northwestern. You mentioned this is their year. They're probably going to get in on the bubble anyways, but I think they're going to make it happen, make the tournament. That Hail Mary pass was ordained from God against Michigan. I think they've got a lot of mojo working right now, and I think this is their year.
Austin?
Yeah. First of all, the fact that the Big Ten tournament's being played in D.C. makes absolutely no sense.
Oh, no.
They showed the picture today. There's about 200 people.
Nobody there, yeah.
In state game. You're 1,500 miles from most of the campuses, except for Maryland, which is why I have the Maryland Terrapins taking home the Big Ten championship. That and the fact that I think they're underrated this year. The narrative for a while, they were winning, but it was, they haven't played anybody, or their strength of schedule is going to pick up. They're not legitimate. I think they've proved people wrong. Melo Trimble, I think, is the second best player in the conference. I think Mark Turgeon's a really good coach. I think they're peaking at the right time. I'll take the Terrapins basically at home over pretty much anybody else. Luke, you can take the Hawkeyes?
Just a second on that. Can you clear something up for me? I believe earlier this year you said Ethan Happ was your Big Ten Player of the Year.
Hold on. No, at that time, I said this was maybe January. I said Ethan Happ should be getting more attention, but at this point, it's clearly Swanigan. I had Swanigan second on my Player of the Year ballot. So, no, I'm about Swanigan. Ethan Happ kind of fell victim to the fact that his team sucks and hasn't won a game pretty much in the last 2 months. So, no, I'm out on Wisconsin. I'd go Happ's probably the third best player in the conference, but I'd go Swanigan, Trimble, Happ.
All right. Well, this is going to be the funnest Big Ten tournament anybody's ever witnessed, because there are literally any team. Penn State beat Nebraska tonight. I think Penn State on up could run the table and make it to the championship game at least, but I wanted to take the Hawkeyes in this, but I reluctantly took the Purdue Boilermakers. Caleb Swanigan is just an animal out there. Like, he can step out and splash a three in your face, plus he can body you down low, rebounds the ball, plays good defense. Plus they have another 7-footer, Isaac Haas, that comes off the bench. That's just really hard to match, especially when Swanigan's been in the game the whole time just wearing on your big guys. But I'll take the Boilermakers in the Big Ten. We'll move to the SEC now. How's that sound?
Sure.
Austin, take it.
So the SEC only has 2 good teams. The rest of the conference is a pile of hot garbage. So I'm taking Florida. They've been playing well. They kind of ended the season on a skid. They lost 2 of their last 3. But I just think they're a matchup problem for Kentucky. And I think that it's almost a lock that those 2 teams are going to meet in the championship. That being said, Florida's probably going to lose in the first round now just to spite me. But yeah, I'll go ahead and take the Gators.
Yeah, like you said, this one's pretty much a 2-team race. I went with Kentucky. I think, since they lost at Florida, they've won now 8 in a row, including getting a bounce back versus Florida at home. And as you mentioned, Florida didn't close out the season too hot. So I'm going with Kentucky. I think they're peaking at the right time. They've got Coach Cal, who's been there before.
Well, it looks like Ben's going to be wrong because I'm with Austin. I think Florida's going to pull this one out. Not much reasoning behind it, but I just looked at that game earlier this year, and Florida played pretty decent in that, and good enough to beat Kentucky. And Kentucky's thrown some stinkers out there in the last couple weeks. I mean, they barely beat Missouri and Vanderbilt. They're just barely hanging on in a lot of these games. So I'll take Florida. And that will move us to the Pac-12 next. Ben, kick it off.
I went with the Oregon Ducks in the Pac-12. I really like Dylan Brooks. I think a bit about them on defense or if they're not hitting shots. But at the same time, either of those teams is scary if they're knocking down shots. But I think Oregon gets the edge here.
Right there with you. I also took Oregon. UCLA's defense, at some point, the teams that usually do well in March aren't the flashy teams or the ones that score the most points. It's usually the boring teams, but the ones that play defense, because if you've got guys like Dylan Brooks that can get inside and be athletic, it's not like Dylan Brooks is going to wake up and not be able to push people around in the paint. UCLA is going to have a game where they come out and they're not hitting shots. TJ Leaf apparently is going to play for UCLA, but it probably won't be 100%. So I'm with you, Ben. I got the Ducks.
I will take the UCLA Bruins. The Fighting LeVar Balls. Lonzo Ball is a freaking animal out there, and I love that. Okay, I don't love Bryce Alford, but he's one hell of a player to have, especially when you have a person like Ball that can distribute the ball nicely and drive into the paint and have the ability to kick it out to a couple snipers. So I'll go with the Bruins in that one, and probably I'd say they get a number 1 seed, but according to Joe Lenardi, who's an expert on this kind of shit, that he has them at a 3 seed right now, which I don't really agree with, but that's fine. Let's move on to our final conference, the Big East. Austin, who do you got?
Another 3 seed. Give me the Providence Friars. They are, if you haven't noticed, my strategy for picking conference tournaments is pretty much just pick the hottest team. That is Providence right now. They've won 6 straight, including games over Creighton and Butler. They're going to have a tough test in the first round with Creighton, but ultimately I think that they have the best shot to take out Villanova. I know Nova's obviously going to be the favorite, but I don't know. I feel good about Providence. So that's pretty much my logic, is they're hot right now.
I do like the Providence pick. There's a lot of buzz around here about them and URI possibly making the tourney in the same year. And they have been hot, but I'm going to stay with the defending champs and go Villanova. It's kind of funny that, we almost left the Big East off of this. But I think it's been an overlooked conference. You look at the standings and there's a lot of good teams that have beaten up on each other, but yet at the same time, Villanova's been at the top, played the most consistent, and I think we're going to see them in the final weekend again.
I have Villanova written down, but I was just looking at their schedule and something stood out. They have 2 losses to Butler on the season. So I'm going to change that pick, and I'm going to go with the Butler Bulldogs to win the Big East and get that automatic bid. They've always just been consistent over the years, even switching from non-power school or non-power conference to now the Big East. That's quite impressive. I'll take the Bulldogs in this one, and maybe they'll have another magical run like they did in 2010, almost beating Duke in the championship game. But yeah, Butler's going to pull this one out. And that will take us to our last topic, our weekly picks. And let me tell you, folks, I'm not doing too hot right now. I'm sitting at 1-3. Austin, what are you at?
I'm at 3-1. I've been doing well. I know Liam's at 4-0. Ben, you're new here, so we're going to judge you entirely based on how good your pick is today.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. So who would like to go first on this one? You know what? Ben, take this. This is your first time.
I'll take it. So I have tomorrow Vanderbilt -4 against Texas A&M. The SEC tournament is in Nashville. It's essentially going to be a home game for Vanderbilt. They had no problem with Texas A&M during the season, beat them by well over 4 points. I think that's a pretty generous -4 there. So I'm taking Vanderbilt -4.
I'm gonna stick with my brand this week of going mid majors, Big West tournament action. I got Cal State Fullerton -1 against Cal State Northridge. Northridge is one of the worst teams in the country against the spread. I think they're something like 7-19 this year, and Fullerton's just a better team all around. I think they're gonna win fairly easily, but especially with a 1-point spread, I think that's a mess up. So I don't know. Give me Cal State Fullerton there, Luke.
I'm going to take Creighton over Austin's pick to win the Big East. Providence right now. Creighton's -2 against Providence tomorrow, Thursday. I'll roll with the Blue Jays, although they've been kind of stinking it up since they lost their big player earlier on in the season. They've been really inconsistent, but they'll pull this one out. They'll win by more than 2. You better put your money on that. My record shouldn't reflect how you take my picks seriously.
I've never felt more confident about my Providence pick than I do right now.
Are you sure you don't want to switch your gambling lock then?
Nope. I'm sticking with Cal State Fullerton.
All right, not a lot of confidence. Any last comments from you guys before we close down the show?
Watch the Mountain West. It's stupid, but fun.
Some wise words right there from Ben Shoemate. That's all we have for the show. Go follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to go follow the Student Union Twitter page as well. Thanks for watching.